Today, we're going to talk about the Ravenous kill team from the previews that are all over the internet. Came out yesterday. Yesterday, we talked about the Battle Clade, the Servitors. If you've not seen that one yet, go and check that one out. Servitors are cool. Today, we're going to talk about the markedly less cool Space Cow snakes, the Ravenous. Ravenous go. So, introduction. Infiltration, Seek and Destroy. You probably want to go Seek and Destroy. Honestly, I don't really like this selection of archetypes. Okay, we'll discuss it more when we get to the archetype slide. But I think Infiltration is pretty difficult for a 5 model. Like I really only rate Infiltration, like I've said previously, on teams that have, like on the Gene Stealer cults, you've got the little I forget what they're called, but the little guys that can just run around and do stuff. You've got the little goblin on the Commandos team. These teams where you have these little action monkey characters, then they can do Infiltration. But I think, by and large, it's not a particularly good deck. Seek and Destroy, yeah, it's probably the one you want to go for. And then you're picking 5 models, so you must pick a prime, and then you're picking 1 to drop out of the Felltalon, Tremorscythe, Venomspitter, Warrior, and Wrecker. In my opinion, you never take a Warrior. That's kind of an ice cold take. That seems to be what everybody is saying. So I think this is definitely a one-box team. I don't even think if you wanted to go deep, if you wanted to really main Raveners, play only Raveners in kill team for the next 3 years, play nothing else, play 5 times a week, I still don't think you'd ever want another box of Raveners. I think it just is what it is. I think the Warrior is just poor. So yeah, and that's a good thing. People like it when it's a one-box kill team. Some people out there might like the opportunity to do more hobby, right? But generally, people like it when it's a one-box team. Very simple selection, right? So let's look at their faction rule. They have 3 faction rules, but the main one is certainly the tunnel. So Raveners dig extensive tunnel networks in the ground and foundations beneath their prey's feet, enabling the hive mind's creations to outmaneuver and ambush their prey. At the end of the setup operative step, place your tunnel marker numbered 0. This, by the way, is a standard 20mm marker on the kill zone floor, wholly within your drop zone and touching your kill zone edge. As a strategic gambit in the first 4 turning points, you can place your next numbered tunnel marker on the kill zone floor, wholly within 5 inches of your preceding tunnel marker. In Killzone Gallow Dark, the distance can be measured through walls. This means that as the battle progresses, you have a series of sequentially numbered tunnel markers 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Once you've placed 5 tunnel markers, don't place any more, i.e. if your battle lasts more than 4 turning points, presumably you're playing in narrative or something weird. Your tunnel markers and the area between your sequentially numbered tunnels, e.g. between 0 and 1, 1 and 2, etc., create your tunnel. In Killzone that uses hazardous area rules such as Beta Decima, for the purposes of the restricted movement rule, parts of the tunnel marker that are touching a hazardous area are treated as a hazardous area. And in this example, so they're giving you a diagram. Operative A is on your tunnel as it's on the area between markers 0 and 1. Operative B is also on your tunnel as it's touching a tunnel marker. Operative C is not on your tunnel as markers 1 and 3 are not sequential, so the area beneath those markers is not part of your tunnel. Okay. So this whole slide tells us nothing about what the tunnel actually does. It just tells us about placing the tunnel. We're going to learn on the next slide what the tunnel actually does, but I think we need to really get this part straight in our head before we start to think about how we're going to use it. Okay, your tunnel essentially is going to allow loads of different things, as we'll see threaded all the way through the rules. But essentially, it's going to allow you to move models quickly from one end of the tunnel to the other. Okay, now a couple of things that occur to me. First of all, playing this exactly as stated with just the markers numbered 0 to 3. The computer scientist in me loves, by the way, that they're 0 indexed. That's amazing. It's really hard for me to visualize where the tunnel actually is. And as we see later on, it's going to be really important both players to know at all times how close they are to that tunnel. So I would really, if you're going to play Raveners, I would seriously recommend you want some really thin templates of the kind that can slide under terrain, which are sort of 5 inches long, with a curve to sit on the marker. You know, I mean, if I was going to play Raveners with any kind of regularity or ever, I'd probably design some myself, right? And that's really going to help your opponent and you, I think, to see where the tunnel actually is. Because otherwise, you're going to be breaking out the laser line pretty constantly just to try and help you visualize where the tunnel is. I think it's quite irritating and tricky. I also want to just flag up as well, the tunnel is a lot less useful on short table edges because your deployment zone is quite big. And so because you have to be touching that back table edge, you're just going to get much less distance on your tunnel if you're playing these short table edges. I kind of think it should have been allowed to place the 0 marker simply wholly within the drop zone, but I'm sure they tested it and felt that it needed to be reined in a little bit, but it seems a little bit underpowered. It also seems really difficult to use on Beta Decima. I was talking to my wife about this, who plans to at least paint the Raveners if not play them, and her exact response, but does anybody actually, outside of hypotheticals in your YouTube video, does anybody actually play Beta Decima? Like, we've all got fixed in our head this idea of hypothetical Jim who plays a lot of Beta Decima, so we always have to bring up how things are going to play on Beta Decima. But it is played, for example, at Not to Kill Team events. They have Beta Decima. They have a prize for the person that ends up playing the most games on Beta Decima over the course of the event. So it is out there. As much as some groups I know never use it, it certainly is out there in the milieu of things. And I do think Raveners are going to suffer a lot on Beta Decima. Yeah. And also, the straight line is going to get you more distance. So tactically, you're going to have to decide. I think the idea really of heading straight towards your opponent's objective on your opponent's side of the table might be the best one. Maybe you want to head for the middle objective. I think you sort of don't really bother about your home objective, and I certainly don't necessarily think you're going to necessarily want to do a zigzag pattern like they have on their example. You could try and react more, I guess, to what your opponent's doing, but I think going in with a game plan and just doing that straight line is probably the way to go. So the burrow rule is going to try and help us out with understanding what the benefits of the tunnel actually are. I'll read this. So Raveners will emerge from their tunnels to strike at unsuspecting victims and then disappear again before their foe can properly react. When setting up a Ravener kill team before the battle, your first 2 operatives must be set up as normal. Each other friendly Ravener operative thereafter can be set up underground, placing it to one side of the kill zone. In the firefight phase, each friendly Ravener operative set up underground activated and counteract as normal. Whenever a friendly Ravener operative is underground, it cannot perform any actions other than burrow. At the end of the battle, each friendly Ravener operative underground is incapacitated. Friendly Ravener operatives can perform the following unique action: burrow. So for 1 AP, if you're underground, you're set up on the tunnel in a location it can be placed. It's no longer underground. It can be set up within the control range of enemy operatives until the end of the activation / counteraction, subtract 2 inches from its move stat. So your opponent's going to have to be very careful. You're on quite a large base. You can deploy with just a slither of your base touching your tunnel, and then you've got the sort of inch of combat as well. So it's quite a large zone where your opponent is at risk of you just going, cool, I burrow, I'm in combat with you, and then I'm going to hit you. Now, I think a very good opponent might be able to avoid having models too near to your tunnel. potentially. But like I say, your tunnel's going to go through underneath nearby at least one like objective that people are fighting over. So you can't just say, "Oh well, my opponent's not going to stand near my tunnel," because if your tunnel is near the middle objective or their back objective or whatever it is, well, if they don't stand near it, then you just pop out and take the objective, right? Now that's not all that the burrow does. You can also use it in reverse. So instead of resolving the above effect, if the operative is in the kill zone or the tunnel, you can remove it from the kill zone and it's now underground. So burrow allows you to go in. It also allows you to pop out, but you can't. It's a unique action, so you can't go in and pop out and then use your third APL to do a third thing in the same turn. Okay. You cannot burrow while you're carrying a marker as well. So that's kind of the core thing about the tunnel. They remind me a little bit of Aqualons, to be honest. But Aqualons obviously can't go back up into space, into orbit, and come down again. Aqualons have this flaw of once they're down, they kind of have to play a much more honest game, whereas the Raveners have the advantage of being able to go in and out the tunnel, which is quite nice. But as we're going to see throughout the rules, there are more things that key off where your tunnel is and being on your tunnel and being near your tunnel. You really can't ignore the tunnel mechanic and just go, "Oh, I want to play, it's 5 models, it must be the most elite team. I'm just going to play my elite team and run forwards and be elite." If you want to play in that more simplistic way, you'll still be better off with Space Marines. Fundamentally, the Raveners are going to require you to really think about and interact with this burrow and tunnel. Otherwise, they're just kind of going to not perform compared to those other sort of Space Marine teams. Then they've got predatory instincts, which is kind of their version of a Astartes, but let's read. Seemingly driven by an all-consuming hunger and with hyper-adapted reflexes, Raveners are deadly blurs of muscle, talons, and fangs. During each friendly Ravener operative's activation, it can perform 2 fight actions. Each friendly Ravener operative can counteract regardless of its order. Whenever it does, you can change its order first or change its order instead of performing an action. For the latter, still treated as having counteracted for this turning point. During that counteraction, it doesn't perform a mission action, it can perform 3 burrow actions. So, okay, let's break this down. You can counteract regardless of order and change order, like Space Marines. You can fight twice. You can't shoot twice, but you can fight twice, like Space Marines. And then we got this extra little bit of when you're counteracting, if you don't perform a mission action, you can perform a free burrow action. So what this means is that when you counteract, and you're a 5 model team, so you're going to be counteracting, you can either counteract to pop out of the tunnel and then do something with your 1 APL for your reaction, or you can, if you're on the tunnel, you can do your counteraction, and then after you've done your 1 APL counteraction, you can then burrow right back into your tunnel. Pretty strong, assuming your tunnel is where you need it to be, right? Strategy ploys. Okay, whipcord emergence. Whether lunging from a rubble-strewn entrance to their network of tunnels or bursting forth in a shower of debris to snatch at prey, Raveners can surprise even elite sentinels. What, like the Astra Minotaur and Walker? Is that coming to Kill Team? I know that we feel like we need to use a lot of Tier 3 vocabulary at Games Workshop, but there's already a thing called a sentinel in this game as a proper noun, so that's a really tedious nitpick, but I'm leaving it in. Whenever an operative is shooting a friendly Ravener operative, if the operative performed the burrow action during the turning point, you can reroll a dice. If your friendly operative is on a tunnel, you can reroll all your defense dice. So, yeah, if you're standing on a tunnel, you reroll all your dice. If you burrowed out, it would have to be out because if you burrowed in, you're not being shot. If you burrowed out the tunnel and moved away, and then you're shot, you can reroll 1 dice instead. So this is really good. You sort of begin to see how important the tunnel is. And it's worth saying as well, I know we're going to get onto the unit cards in a minute. These guys do only have a 5-up save. generally speaking. So these rerolls and things are really important. They are really important to your survivability. And then you got death from below. So, spurred by an imperative from the hive mind, raveners will coordinate lunges from depths of their tunnel network to eviscerate a wary prey that have strayed too close. Whenever a friendly ravener operative is fighting, if it performs the burrow action during that activation counteraction, its melee weapons are balanced, and if it's on the tunnel, it's ceaseless. So this is essentially the offensive version of Whipcord Emergence. It's pretty good. And again, we'll see it again. You'll see that every single one of these strat ploys has that word on it. Tunnel, 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 tunnel. They really do have to care about the tunnel. And therefore, the length of your tunnel and the positioning of the tunnel is going to have a real chokehold over how effective this team can be. Right? Writhe out of sight. Few organisms are capable of slithering away into darkness as blink of an eye as a ravener. The question is, where did they go? Did they go into the tunnel? I bet they went into the tunnel. Let's see. Select one friendly ravener operative. That friendly operative can immediately perform a free burrow action. If it's within 2 of your tunnel, it can immediately perform a free fallback or reposition action before it does so. So, yeah, you can pay a CP to bomb a model out of where it could be shot in the strategic phase, which is it's pretty powerful, right? And then it hasn't lost anything. You can still activate it and emerge it anywhere else on the table that is served by your tunnel. The word tunnel is starting to lose all meaning, and the name of the next strategy ploy is Tunnel Lurkers. Raveners are horrifically adept at remaining all but invisible, partially submerged with broken terrain from the moment they lunge. Whenever a friendly Ravener operative is on your tunnel, it's in cover. Unless it's within 2 of an active objective, treat this as cover provided by light terrain, therefore affected by rules that prevent this, like Seek Light Advantage. So, treating your tunnel as cover is pretty good, because again, you have a 5-up save, and this also means that you can just be on conceal in the open if you're on your tunnel. And if so you could be there, and then if you're, say, a shooty guy, you do have a shooty guy, you could flip to engage, shoot your gun, and then burrow, right? So you get to shoot, and your opponent, neither before nor after your activation, has a chance to punish you for shooting, right? And then, just so I understand, you could potentially have a model on conceal on the tunnel, shoot, so flip to engage, shoot, burrow, and then later, if you wanted to, as a counteraction, you could flip its order back to conceal and burrow it out, right? So you're ready to go again? Just saying. So those look really good, but again, you see how important it is, and just what a sort of chokehold this tunnel mechanic really has on the whole team. Slithering Evasion. So on to the Firefight ploys now. Slithering Evasion. The secretion slick carapace and unholy speed of a Ravener enables him to avoid being bogged down against dangerous prey. Use this Firefight ploy during a friendly Ravener operative's activation or counteraction. During that activation or counteraction, the operative can fall back for 1 less AP, or perform the charge action while within control range of enemy operative, leaving that operative's control range to do so, but then the normal requirements for the move apply. This is interesting. I think it's quite situational. It's quite rare that you're going to want to fall back. It's quite rare that you're going to want to charge out of one thing into another thing. But if those 2 things do come up for you, then it's useful to remember that you have the option to spend a CP to get the job done. I would say a typical, occasionally used toolbox Firefight ploy. Subterranean Horror. Those who think to trap a Ravener by tackling it in its brood burrow invite only their own demise, as the bioform uses hidden tunnels, we know, to encircle its prey before striking from an unexpected angle. Use this Firefight ploy when an enemy operative is performing the fight action and selects a friendly Ravener operative on your tunnel. Gosh. To fight against. In the reserve attack dice step of that sequence, you resolve the first attack dice, e.g. the defender instead of the attacker. So again, the tunnel thing, tunnel, but this is otherwise a really powerful ploy that you're going to want to use whenever you can. right? Because resolving your dice first when you're the defender is really, really good. But it's just, again, you're on that chokehold of the tunnel, which, if you're playing on short table edges and it's turning point 1, what tunnel? What tunnel are we talking about? I've not actually played these on the table, so I don't know. This is just my supposition from a relatively quick read through, right? So there we go. Burrowing strike. Just a guess, but from the name, pretty sure this is going to involve the tunnel. The last sight for many operatives fighting Raveners is a blur of their own uniform as they disappear into the depths of a Xenos burrow. Use this firefight ploy when a friendly Ravener operative performs a burrow action. Before that operative is removed from the kill zone or after setting it up on your tunnel, inflict D3+1 damage on each enemy operative within control range. You can't use this ploy in the strategy phase or during a Felltalon operative's activation or counter action if it performs the toxic lunge action and vice versa. So it's chip damage for a CP. You're going to have to make the assessment in the moment as to whether D3+1 damage is worth a CP. I mean, I would say if there's a situation where you're going to be burrowing out and there's going to be a bunch of people in control range, if they've kind of set you up to spend this CP and start just dishing out loads of damage, especially if you're playing against like a 7 or an 8 wound team where D3+1 is fairly significant, then you probably want to go for it. Or if you're burrowing out and there's somebody there with 1-2 wounds, again, you're going to want to go for it. But it's not something you're going to use all the time. None of these firefight ploys really are looking like the bread and butter of the team. Subterranean horror is the one that I'm going to try and think, can I use subterranean horror every turning point? Like every turning point, I'm attacked, or I'm near enough a tunnel for subterranean horror. The rest are more situational, right? We'll go on to Death Frenzy. Raveners can be compelled by the hive mind to fight in a last surge of biostimulated aggression, even as their own bodies fail. This doesn't have anything in it about tunnels, thankfully. Use this firefight ploy when a friendly Ravener operative is incapacitated. Oh, it's damage on death, right? Use this when a friendly hive operative is incapacitated before the operative removes the kill zone for D3 damage on each enemy operative within its control range. If it's a Venomspitter that's currently benefiting from the effects of its distended dorsal sac, inflict 2d3 damage instead. Well, it's chip damage on death. Again, if you can see that the likely output, right, is going to make a difference, then maybe you spend the CP, but it's not the kind of ability that I'm really going to write home about. Okay? Right, let's get on to the actual things. I want to start with the warrior. Even though I said you're never going to take a warrior, and I stand by that. I do think you're never going to take a warrior, but I want to talk about the warrior because it will let me establish the baseline for the stats and the guns, and then we can talk about how all of the others differ as compared to the basic warrior. So your team is APL 3 with a 7-inch move and a 5-up save and 20 wounds. So they're interesting, right? A 5-up save is low, 20 wounds is high. You're going to take a lot of chip damage before you die, right? But you are going to take that damage. Now, I think that's an interesting approach. It means that it's always worth just shooting at a Ravener with a las gun or whatever you have just to try and chip. Whereas some of the teams that have more kind of really good saves or sort of shenanigans with the save, sometimes it doesn't feel particularly worthwhile. Like, I'm firing a bolter at a Space Marine. I got some hits, they saved them. Right, what was the point? Like, we're just wasting time. Shooting a Ravener never feels like a waste of time. You're always just going to keep getting that wound counted down, which is useful. And then we got the Pincer Tail. 4 attacks hitting on 3s, 3/4, range 3, silence. So this is like an incidental shooting attack, right? If you happen to be within 3 and you can go for this, I don't truly honestly understand when you're using this because your melee attack is so much better. Obviously, it has the thing of you have 3 APLs, you might want to fight, charge, shoot, or shoot, charge, fight, or do something of that nature. But you can fight twice. But maybe if there's someone there that you can just finish off, or it would be helpful like that. Or if you yourself only have 1 or 2 wounds left, and therefore you're probably going to die if you get involved in a fight action, you might try and get a decent attack off with the pincer tail first. Yeah. And then the scything talons, 5 dice hit on 3s, 4, 5. Like, don't get me wrong, it's a good attack. But when you show me it's a 5 model team of Raveners, I expect them to be hitting harder than an assault marine. Because they've got 1 less body, and they're real scary looking. So it's a shame that they don't have. I mean, maybe it's a bit overpowered, but I would like to see them have something as baseline, like rending right or similar. I don't know. And then we'll look at the rule that the warrior does. The warrior does bring a unique rule, a special rule that the others don't have. So we'll look at it. Instinctive behavior. When the opponent is shooting against, fighting against, or retaliating against a wounded enemy operative, or an enemy operative that performs a fallback action during its turning point, it gains lethal 5-up. I mean, it's not nothing, but it's not something that you can control. It's not something that you can really plan around. And it's not something that excites me. And it's something that you can go through an entire game and never have come up, right? So I don't think you're ever taking a warrior. But I want to look at the warrior first so we can understand the baseline, right? So now we're going to look at the prime. So what does the prime have over the warrior? Well, +1 wound, okay, and it has rending on its weapons. So it gains rending on its tail blade and rending on its melee. Otherwise, the melee and the combat attack are the same, but again, rending, which is pretty good. Okay, and then its special rules. So it's got the neuropredatory crest. Whenever you're determined to control the marker, you treat the total APL stat of enemy operatives that contest it as 1 lower if at least 1 enemy operative is within 3 of this operative. This isn't a change to the APL stat, so any other changes are cumulative with this. So this is really good. You're APL 3, so it means that they need 2 Marines, or they need 3 APL 2 fellas to bully you off the point, right? Which is a good thing. And it doesn't just do that; it also stipulates that they must spend an additional AP for that enemy operative to perform the pickup mission actions, which is good. And you also can't re-roll your attack or defense dice for operatives that are within 3 of the Ravener Prime as well, which of course would include anybody in combat with the Ravener Prime, which is pretty good. Okay. And then he also brings a strategic gambit, which I don't love, but it's there, right? So this operative isn't incapacitated. You roll a d6 and compare it to the result, to the number of the current turning points. If it's higher than the result, you gain a CP. If it's equal to, nothing happens. And if it's less than, you inflict damage on the operative equal to the result. So, turning point 1, you gain a CP on a 2+. Great. Turning point 2, you gain a CP on a 3+. If you roll a 1, you're taking damage. Great. Turning point 3, you gain a CP on a 4+. If you roll a 1, you take 1 damage. If you roll a 2, you take 2 damage. You have 21 wounds, so you're going to have to. I think it's a no-brainer in turning point 1 to turning point 2. I think you're going to have to look at your wounds that you have left and go, can I soak 2 wounds? The answer is often going to be yes, right? And then in turning point 4, you've worked out how this works by now. You roll a dice. On a 5 or a 6, you gain a CP. On a 1, a 2, or a 3, you gain that many wounds. So you could potentially do 3. You probably don't roll it, I guess, in turning point 4, unless you like a gamble. But then if you're sitting there in turning point 4 and you go, well, actually, I've got 21 wounds because my opponent's not really managed to do anything to me, then sure, I'll gamble 3 of those. If I have 4 wounds, then I won't gamble potentially 3 of those away, right? Yeah, so it's a bit of a weird one, but I think it's basically you gain a CP in turning point 1 and probably in turning point 2. Yeah, it's fine. It's a little bit of a fun little mini game. Your opponent's going to find it very boring as you explain. Oh, I'm doing this thing. I roll a dice. Oh, this happens. And even if you lose a wound, your opponent's will be like, right, okay, yeah. It's just very uninteractive, but fine. Okay, let's look at the Felltalon. So compared to the basic warrior, your melee attack gains lethal 5-up and shock and poison. We know what poison is. It should be a universal special rule. It's being used more and more, but it's on the card. It's the usual thing. If it gets a poison token and it does D3 damage when it activates, okay. You have a second ranged weapon, which is strictly better than your pincer tail. It's just the pincer tail, but with range 6 and the poison again. So why does it still even have the pincer tail? Like, what's the point? Okay. And then we have Toxic Lunge for 1 AP. So you select an enemy operative within 2 of this operative, or if you're underground, select an enemy operative anywhere on the tunnel, and you just do D3 plus 2 damage to the enemy operative, and it gains a poison token. And you can perform the action while underground as well. You can just go, yeah, you've got D3 plus 2 damage, that's cool. Really good. You know, I think, yes, it involves the tunnel, but it doesn't have to. Even just, like, for all I've said, yeah, a load of these guys, you have to interact with the tunnel. You do have to interact with the tunnel, but you do still have a 7-inch move. And so a person like this can just go, okay, I'm here. If somebody's foolish enough to like let you activate while you're in combat with them, you're like, cool, Toxic Lunge, fight again, right? You're probably going to die. Yeah, it's 1 AP to do D3 plus 2 damage. It's hard to dislike that, right? And even without that ability, in other ways, a meaningful upgrade over the basic warrior. Then you got the Wrecker. So as compared to the basic warrior, the Wrecker brings a +1 to his save. His ranged attack gains piercing 1. He has damage reduction. So normal and critical damage of 4 or more inflicts 1 less damage on this operative. Nice. And then his melee weapon gains this crush ability, which is like random extra damage. They're quite a gambly team. This is the second like random dice rolly gambly thing that the Raveners have had. I don't really understand. When I think of the hive mind, I don't really think of randomness, but sure. Crush. Whenever you strike, you and your opponent roll off, adding 1 to your result. If the operative this weapon is being used against has a wound stat of 9 or less. If you win, inflict additional damage on the operative equal to the difference between the dice results to a maximum of 3 additional damage. It's a gamble, but it's not really a gamble because you don't stand to lose anything. It's just, hey, I might get to do I get to do 0 to 3 extra damage to you whenever I strike, which is fine. It's a little bit over convoluted. It feels like it's a rule that is a bit misplaced because it feels like a rule that could be very thematic for some kind of, if there was a racing 40k that loved gambling. But sure, little mini game, but it's just 0 to 3 extra damage every time you strike, which could potentially be really, really good, right? Then we got the Venomspitter. So this guy is effectively your gunner, okay? He has a powerful. He still has the pincer tail for some reason as well. In case, I suppose, at least in the case of this guy, it's like, oh, you really want that silent? You've got the option, right? But you got the Venom Bolt. So the Venom Bolt is, it's not infinite range. It's range 8 off the bat, right? Hits on 3s. It's 3/5 with blast 2, or it's 4/5 with piercing 1. Which is nice. But then you've got this distended dorsal sac. So for an AP, until you've shot with your Venom Bolt or performed a burrow action, all profiles in the Venom Bolt have lethal 5-up, have 1 added to their attack stat, and the range 8 weapon rule is removed. So when I read this out, and they spoiled this fella's card on Walk-On, when I read it out, I got confused, and I was like, oh, your first attack in the game with your Venom Bolt's really good, and then it drops down into the profile. No, it doesn't. You never have to shoot your Venom Bolt not with the benefit of Distended Dorsal Sac. You just spend your AP for Distended Dorsal Sac, and then you shoot with your Venom Bolt, right? And then with your third APL, I guess you probably go and do a burrow, because you're probably going to pop out and shoot, or shoot and then pop back down, right? Yeah, he is your 1 long-range support, and as a long-range weapon, 5 dice, hitting on 3s, 4/5, Piercing 1, poison, lethal 5-up's pretty good. It's not like the best weapon in the game, but it's pretty good. And poison, of course. Tremorscythe. Oh boy, he has a lot of text. So in terms of his stat line and his weapons, he's the same as a warrior. He just has all this text. So let's read it. We're back to talking and thinking about tunnels. Subterranean ambush. Once per turning point, after an enemy operative performs an action in which it moves more than 2 and ends in 2 of your tunnel, if this operative is underground and is either ready or hasn't counteracted during the turning point, you can interrupt the enemy operative's activation/counteraction to use this rule. If you do, activate or counteract with this operative as appropriate, but during its activation/counteraction, it must fight or shoot against that enemy operative and cannot do so against any other enemy operatives until it does. If this is impossible, its operative's activation or counteraction is cancelled. This rule hasn't been used. After completing the operative's activation/counteraction, continue the enemy operative's activation/counteraction if possible. So you can interrupting is really mental in Kill Team. There's not that much that lets you interrupt. And so when you can interrupt in this way, it feels really good and really powerful for the person doing the interrupting, and it feels kind of weird for the person who's being interrupted. And this is one of those things that I really don't like about this team, especially if you're not playing with templates to really make it very clear to your opponent where the tunnel is, because it's just going to be so easy. You know, if I think I'm playing into these and it's game 3 or game 4 of a tournament and I move somebody and my opponent isn't being like a super gentleman, perfect good sport and doesn't go, oh, you know, if you move there, I'm gonna have the option of doing this with my Tremorscythe. Like if they don't interrupt what I'm doing to tell me that they could interrupt me and kill me, and I just wander into something, and then they go, "Oh, hang on, you've activated my trap card. Here's my giant rabbit in your face, eating you." Like, I'm not having a bad day, you know. So this is why I really think it's important to. Obviously, you don't have to warn your opponent every time they're about to trigger one of your cool. Because I get it from the side of the table. As the Ravener player, it's cool to be sitting there all lurking, and then somebody wanders around, you know, to activate a beacon or whatever they're doing, and suddenly a Tremorscythe comes up and eats them. That's fun for the Ravener player. I get it. I just think I really would advocate the use of some kind of really thin, I'm thinking like a really thin 3D printed template, just to make it really super clear to everybody where those tunnels are, and be like, look, if you move to within 2 inches of this bright orange piece of plastic, this is what, and then you can explain that once at the start of the game, like, this is what's going to happen. I mean, me being me, I would still explain it to stop them actually doing it, but that's because I'm a really nice guy, often to my detriment, right? But this is like the most gotcheriest gotcha that ever gotcha'd out of Gotcha Town, right? So bear that in mind. It's powerful. The model is powerful. I just don't like it, and I think therefore that means I don't like this team, right? Because I don't like the kind of it's an adversarial game, but I feel like if I'm playing the Raveners, a large part of what I'm doing is waiting for my opponent to make a mistake with their positioning so that I can ruin their day. And that doesn't make me feel good as a human being. Maybe that's just me being a big soft touch, you know, and overthinking a game of toy soldiers. He's also got Hypersensory Hunter. The operative can perform a charge action or from conceal if it performed burrow during the same activation/counteraction, which again, you can charge for conceal when you emerge. That's pretty fun. It's pretty good. Like, really cool. Definitely better than a warrior. Never take a warrior. Take all the named guys. Thank you for listening to my TED talk, you know. Equipment then. So you've got Chromatospore Camouflage. Chromatic adaptions enable these bioforms to virtually disappear. Whenever an operative is shooting a friendly Ravener operative, if you can retain any cover saves, you can retain an additional cover save, not cumulative with the improved cover save from Vantage Terrain. So I think this is pretty mandatory because it's always on, is a buff for a whole team all the time forever. So the best kind of equipment. You have a relatively poor armor save, 5 up, 4 up on one model, okay? And you've got the strap ploy that lets you gain cover from your standing on your tunnel. between all those things, I think you always have to take the Chromatophore Camouflage. Acid Blood, Corrosive Viscera, and Caustic Fluids. Games Workshop, they're the same thing. Spray from these creatures' wounds. Whenever a friendly Ravener operative is fighting or retaliating, whenever an attack dice inflicts damage on it, roll a d6. On a 5-up, inflict 1 damage on the enemy operative in that sequence. It's fine. If you can't think of anything better you want to take from the Universal Equipment, and yes, these can use Universal Equipment. In the actual book, there's a designer's note saying, like, we know this is stupid, doesn't make sense, but I'm paraphrasing. But you can use the Universal Equipment, even though I think the idea of a Ravener climbing a ladder is daft. Right, but you're just supposed to reskin it in your mind, which works for some things. Like a smoke grenade could be a cloud of like spores. That's fine, right? But some of them, a comms device. Not that they never use the comms device, but the fact they can just, barbed wire. I guess it could be tyranid gribbly bits. But yes, for balance reasons, you can use the Universal Equipment, and maybe you do instead of Acid Blood. Ladders and smoke grenades, I think, will be quite good for the Raveners, wouldn't they? Just in general, maybe even stun grenades, because you're APL 3. Metamorphic Flesh. Some Raveners. Every Ravener you're going to meet in a game of Kill Team, mate. Some Raveners are reported to have recovered from injuries that should have been fatal, their flesh and chitin reknitting in a rapid regeneration. Whenever a friendly Ravener operative is activated, it gains D3 lost wounds. So you are a 20 wound team with a 5-up armor save where you're going to get chipped down to death, and then you're going to get a piece of equipment that just gives your whole team heal D3 on activation every time forever, and it can't be turned off. Staple this to your arm. Like, you never don't take this. This is one of those auto-include, and I know there are a lot of auto-include pieces of equipment in the game of Kill Team, but this is one of those auto-include pieces of equipment that I've seen in a long while, right? So this one, and the camo, I think you're always taking. The Acid Blood, you can take. Let's read the heightened senses. Even burrowing. Raveners can detect enemy pheromones, esoteric energies, and the whir of servos, enabling them to land sudden ambushes. Once per battle, I already don't like it, when rolling the Decide initiative, if a friendly Ravener operative is underground and an enemy operative is within 5 of your tunnel, you can re-roll the dice? Once per game, re-roll initiative if this other shit. I don't think I would take the equipment if it was just once a game you can re-roll the initiative dice. Right? No. So this is the worst one. So definitely drop this for something from the Universal Equipment. If your plan says you want smoke grenades and ladders, then you can drop the Acid Blood as well. If you just want smoke grenades or you just want ladders or something like that, then I don't think you lose anything by taking Acid Blood. It's quite nice. It slows the game down a little bit, but it gets some chip damage out. It's fine, but you don't miss it in the same way that you would with the camo or the metamorphic flesh. I think you have to take every single game. Heightened senses just annoys me by its very existence. So, moving on, we're going to talk about Tac Ops. I don't like them. I think you take Overrun, right? Because Overrun is a lot of being in your opponent's territory. Yeah, you got your whole tunnel thing that tunnels about and gets you in your opponent's territory. You also just have a 7-inch move, right? So chances are you can do Overrun. You could do Storm objectives. You might prefer Storm objectives to Overrun. You might prefer Overrun to Storm objectives. If any team's going to make a Fist-Staff champion, maybe it's this team. But I think Overrun or Storm objectives are the safer bet. I can't see a world where I'm going for Infiltration. I keep saying it, but this is the exact opposite kind of team to a team that I want to take Infiltration with. Final thoughts. I do think they're a little bit underpowered throughout the gate, just because how much of a limit on their ability to do stuff that the tunnel mechanic is. And I think the tunnel is going to be super swingy depending on the kind of map you're playing on. So if you're playing on Into the Dark, or if you're playing on long edges on Volcus, I think you're going to think this will look absolutely fine, and you're going to have lots of fun with the team. As soon as you try and play on a short table edge on Volcus, or you're trying to play on Beta Decima, I think that's where you're going to struggle. Because on Beta Decima, you know, your tunnel's basically going to have to be any use to. It's going to have to go up one flank, so half the table's not going to benefit from it. Yeah. I think an easy fix for the short table edges problem would be to place the 0 marker wholly within the drop zone. And an easy fix to the Beta Decima problem would be that they rotate out Beta Decima with the next season rather than what they are supposedly doing, which is rotating out Into the Dark. Yeah. But maybe you're more up. I do dislike Tyranids in general. They're not my favorite part of the IP. I have referred to them on the Discord as space cows. People do dislike. I basically don't like things in my fiction that cannot communicate with each other in English, and therefore you cannot learn their thoughts properly. Right? It annoys me. But if you're more of a Tyranid fan and you want to tell me in the comments why these guys are amazing and why I'm wrong, then please do. Please do. Mentioned this last time. The box sold out in about 20 minutes, but there's loads on eBay. Like, on the one hand, you don't want to reward scalpers particularly well. On the other hand, you are probably going to pay less on eBay than you will eventually pay when GW release them, right? Because they're going to be more than 40 quid when they're separate. Do subscribe, comment, like, etc. and consider joining the Discord. All the links in the description. A big thank you to all my members who financially support me every single month, but especially big thanks to Sam and Alex who are subscribed at the highest possible tier, and they make the magic happen, right? So that's it. I've reviewed the two teams that came out, or what the rules came out on the internet yesterday. So good. That's it in terms of the sort of Typhon coverage until I get my hands on the box and maybe build the teams, play some games, do other things with them. That's it. That's my impressions. So I hope you enjoyed that. Be back again tomorrow with another video, and yeah, I'll see you then. Cheery, 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 cheery. Bye. Bye-bye. Bye.